She wants to groom you into, in 90% of cases, excuse yourself if you're not in that 90%. I'm sure you will, even if you are. And what I'm pointing out is the only thing that she could be good for, she has it crushed and thrown in a bin in front of her. Right? And the only other thing she could be good for is cooking. And rebel without a cause, a reactionary rather than a decision of self, easily Zionist programmed, always programmed by the wrong people who are killing her. She decides to basically never learn to cook, so her children are then fed Zionist infected gruel from a fucking box with wrapping paper and plastic which has got shite in it, which destroys her children. She can be relied upon to be that imbecilic. She gets what she deserves, and she takes the pill, which is Zionist infected, and she also goes along with everything they say, even like mammograms, where a lunatic gets to squeeze your tits painfully and irradiate them, which actually increases instances of cancer. And all these other things that they give females, subject them to, who they go along with, always go along with the Zionist Jew. Yeah, they've got your best intentions at heart. They've got good intentions at heart. You know, they really care about you. And you know, they're not really giving you things to give you cysts and cervical cancer and breast cancer and fuck up your brain. You know, they're not really trying to do that to you. They're not trying to get you to lead an unhealthy lifestyle which none of your ancestors lived. Yeah, they're not trying to separate you from your other half, because no matter, even if you're a psychopath, the male will have the missing components of your brain, and you'll have the missing components of his brain. Whereas I'm a living Christ, and I've got it all. Oh, so yeah, here's the thing, right? And the list of my gifts, right? I played the violin when I was 7, bit of a musical pull towards that, you know, and I still have that violin. And so I play the guitar to quite a remarkably high standard, if you want to call it that. I'm really proficient and prolific songwriter, and I think I can touch people, move people with my songs, which I'm releasing very soon. More of my new album called The Bomb, and you don't have to pronounce it like that, but it helps. And the thing is, I'm also a phenomenal piano player, if I do say so myself, just telling the truth. For example, you may listen to Chopin Opus 66, and I can play that right through. So although I play it a tiny bit slower and a bit more heavily than Chopin would have played it, who was lighter fingered and faster, and I can play it at that speed. I prefer it to be a little bit more slowed down and a bit heavier, and a bit more depth into it. He liked Beethoven for Beethoven's depth. For example, you can hear it in Moonlight Sonata, Clair de Luna, whatever it's called. So so that there are some gifts, you know, musically. I can write, I can compose music as well as write songs, and I'm, you know, quite a good singer, to say the least, if I do say so myself. You know, obviously I know I incur the wrath of narcissists hypocritically if I tell the truth about myself. So right, that's just the musical side of things. I'm also a novelist, a prolific writer. I have a great deal of depth to what I'm magnifying and amplifying and selflessly putting out there. Right? I also have practical cures that I've invented, quite miraculous cures into the bargain. I also create, have inventions that I've produced, which I'll be revealing very shortly, which should really help the entire world overcome what these Zionist reptiles are presently doing to you. I could go on a great deal about these things. It's just, I have a staggering insight into the beasts that I share a planet with who pretend to be human. And once again, I have solutions for all these problems. They're really quite straightforward. I have an ability to, you know, start businesses and make them very successful in a very short period of time. And what I've done is I've saved countless children's lives going back over 20 years. and who have written to me and thanked me needlessly. And I also run a farm and have property all over the world, and basically I'm going from strength to strength, and all these, different, just have an overarching range of moral aims, and this allows me to keep on going. And my number one mission is to try and save as many kids from needless, excruciating agony as possible, and also to propel what could be construed as a parallel output, because obviously I'm not unaware that it seems a bit ridiculous, to be writing a song and putting it out when they're genociding us. So I have to balance these things across the board, so it somewhat slows me down. Nonetheless, I just keep on going. So there are loads and loads and loads of things that I could call strings to my bow, and I could list them all, one after the other. I would just like you to reconsider. Have you ever written a revolutionary novel? Have you ever written a great song? Have you ever produced a miracle cure? Have you ever invented something which could, revolutionise the world as we know it? Have you saved, for example, a village in Africa or India from needless, excruciating agony? Are you a remarkable musician or songwriter? Do you tick any of those boxes? Have you a staggering insight into criminology which shows you the psychology and pathology of devils besetting the species, after which you're able to provide the solutions? Are you able to channel miracles? I am, provably. Did you discover a law? I discovered a law. Newton discovered gravity. It was already there. It's just it was invisible, so he didn't know it existed until he went, "Here, I think there's a reason every time I jump off the roof I hurt my arse." And that was it, discovered. So it's really simple. The intention in your heart is returned. It's as simple as that. So if you've got good intention, at the pace that you do good in the world, it's returned undeniably. And if you're a bad person, slowly but surely, oh man, it's returned and it's all around you. And I worked out it weights you down. And look at the work of Charles Dickens, another revolutionary writer. He pointed out Jacob Marley is weighted down by the chains of his sins, really. And I worked out myself this, and then I recognised the parallel, and I'd recognised it previously, but it hadn't carried as much weight with me until I thought, yeah, because every single person I've studied who's a psychopath, like, I can tell the weight of them. The heavier they are, the badder a person they are, and the worse that they've done in life. And so every time that I reach a fork in a road to go up one, I take off that wheel to make this journey more easy, and it's going to be tougher, so to make it just doable. And I always find at that exact moment a wheel that a previous person I've got great respect for has left there, or at least a quote that's attributable to that person. And I found when I was looking for just the history of Yeshua, just a couple of things I wanted to double check, and I found this quote, right, which was that whenever he felt he was punished by meeting the likes of Wurzel Gummidge and the tramp at the Albert Hall, he was grateful, because it helped him see that there's a moral law. I didn't know he'd come to the same conclusion. I didn't know Martin Luther King had come to a similar conclusion. It's something that's so hard to say you believe is true because it's fucking invisible. And if you don't have a prefrontal cortex, right, or you have limited moral fibre there, then you can't believe it's true because you don't have a moral perception of reality, a moral guide. You know right from wrong, but morality is beyond your comprehension. So Every single serial killer I've studied, without exception, was so insane, they wanted to covertly con me into being immoral, to pretend prove morality doesn't exist. Every one of them, female, male, every country, all age groups, every paedophile division they want you in, every demographic, right? Every one of them wanted to pretend or get me to accidentally or to fall for admitting something which isn't true, so that they could then pretend that morality doesn't exist. They'd pretend proving it away. You know, they're lunatics, right? Fact. They're morally insane. They're moral imbeciles, right? And they may well have a different perspective on life, but it's grossly mentally handicapped. You know, a dog has got gaps in its perception, right? It isn't, you know, a full or well-rounded intellect. It is what it is. It does what it can, and it's, you know, evolved to that extent to do that. However, there are loads of things it can't do because it's missing this capacity, these perceptions and so on and so forth. However, in many cases, dogs genuinely, provably are more human than so-called humans. And so, I'm pointing out that there's a moral law, and I discovered it. And you have to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, you're your own worst enemy. So, look at that list, and that's me genuinely being modest. There's so many more things I could say about myself, right? You know, just I'm just going to draw a line there, right? So, look at that list. Do you tick any of those things? Can you tick any of those boxes and say, yeah, I'm a great singer, I'm a fucking, you know, whatever, you know? The answer is probably no. Yeah, and if you can tick one, it's one. I tick them all. You know, but, you know, I genuinely lack arrogance. You know, like Van Gogh, he wasn't interpersonally a great guy to get along with. However, he knew the right thing to do is to distance himself, and he didn't sell a painting during his own lifetime by choice. You know, and that was the life that I wanted to start with, and then, you know, I just wanted to like be on, like, if there's A-list, you know, at most D-list, you know, I didn't think I could stand many more than that, you know, and then in the end, what propelled me more was just starving darkies. I'm quite good that way, me, really, you know, and so that's just that list, right? So here's another list, and I want to know if you tick any of these boxes as well. Simple. I never make things easy on people, right? You know, and nor should you, because, you know, like I say, Van Gogh, when he was painting in that field, you know, there's people, you know, like around the place, you know, and they didn't have a clue what was taking place in that field was history and art. You know, they didn't realise the importance of it. And then a couple of fat homosexual psychopaths went into the field and just shot him for sexual pleasure. You know, they were pretending his retaliation predated their instigation. You know, so a couple of wurzels. And he then crawled back to his cottage and died there. And some people say so as not to shame them. I just think he wanted to die in the cottage in peace. You know, he couldn't get peace in this life. And it's a shame. And in Erol on PTSD, I'm going to try and help people find peace. Stu, I'm going to give you the second list and see if you tick any of these things. Right? If your father, right, left your mother and had another family, right, and his firstborn son was Brad Pitt, would you tell anybody that your half-brother is Brad Pitt? You have the same father. Would you? If I told you that my half-brother was Brad Pitt, why would I go up in your estimations? It's the kind of thing I wouldn't tell people. I don't want to make it easy in any way, shape or form. My half-brother's not Brad Pitt. Right? What if your half-sister was Beyonce? Would you tell people? Isn't it sad you would go up in their estimations if you did? Yeah? Yeah? So you've got the same father, you know, he's dating a black woman, and they have Beyonce, and she's your half-sister, right? If you tell people, isn't it sad that you'd go up in their estimations? My half-sister's not Beyonce. However, she's as famous as Beyonce. Yeah. I never mention it. Ever. You're mentioning it now. If I don't tell you who she is, you would never find out. However, she's genuinely, provably, as famous as Beyonce. And I would say more talented. That's just one. Right? I also have a cousin who, once again, never mention them, and his wife as well, never mention her. They are really well known. She's remarkably well known, I would say, in the comedy field. You know, I haven't seen her for a long time, but I know she must still be up there. I haven't seen anything for a long time. I don't watch television or that. The last time I ever watched television, she was on it that year, you know, several times in big comedy shows. But I never ever mention her. I don't feel I have any right to mention her or him. You know, he's been in a comedy show as well. Although admittedly, watching him is the exact same as me going into my forest that I own and watching a tree grow. No offence. And so maybe it's best I don't mention him. So, if you had a cousin and his wife who were that well known, would you mention them? Wouldn't it be sad if you went up in people's estimations and they went, what? That's his cousin and that's his cousin's wife? Isn't it sad? You know, his sister's as famous as Beyonce, and I never mention them. Also, you know, my old man, you know, Beyonce's dad, he contacted me recently, over the course, right? And I went a different direction in life because he's, you know, the truth is my father, you know, solid underfoot, matches in my pocket. And the thing is, you know, so I'm glad I didn't have him as a father, because he pursued money instead of becoming a father, and he's paying the ultimate price now. He's hollow. Yeah? And he put in an appearance and he was wanting me to call him daddy, right? Genuinely. And if I don't call him daddy, that's his excuse, right? To then pretend I am what he is, and then he's not going to hell. Satan's conned that easily. Yeah, God's conned that easily as well, more importantly. You know, basically, I rumbled him and exposed him, and people were using it behind the scenes and in front of the scenes to basically say whatever shite they could think of to him. And half of them were thinking they were masterminds, getting away with talking shite, as though that was like something they were having a go at me through. You know, it's just the magical thinking of imbeciles. However, I used it to have a go at him, and to hammer him, and to expose him, and my so-called mother. However, what he'd said in preface to that, several weeks earlier, where I hammered him privately, and he was a fucking disgrace, man. He essentially offered me lots of money if I would call him daddy. So let's just say, like, he goes around the world buying racehorses, and I've not seen this guy since I was a kid, and I saw him twice. I saw him when I was 7, and I saw him when I was 11, and that was it. 2 days in my entire life, and when he meets me in my 40s, online, he wants me to call him daddy. I told him, see, if I fucking meet you in person, I'm going to shoot you in the face. Yeah? So maybe not the reaction he was looking for, but it wasn't a reaction, it was just a promise. And so, would you, if a millionaire whose daughter's as famous as Beyonce contacted you and said, just say this word and I'll give you hundreds of thousands? Would you? I didn't, you know. I'm a self-made man. My father's the truth, you know. And I believe in the moral law of the universe. And I saw into him and I exposed him and hammered him. Yeah. So, I could go on. How about this, right? People who you would be amazed at, right? Who are really, really remarkably well known for it. I can't name them, right? Because if I name them, then the prostitutes would attack them. Suffice to say, there was one woman who's widely known across the majority of America, and I wrote to her as a social experiment, didn't expect any reaction, but she actually wrote back and then said to me she wanted to keep in touch and all that. So that was hurdle one in my social experiment, and anybody who knows me knows I'll give her another hurdle, and the toughest one, and gave her my thesis on Zionist Jews. She didn't write back, you know. So let me put it to you this way, give you the equivalent. Imagine you write to Kate Perry as a social experiment. She writes back and says, this is what I believe, I appreciate every word you're saying, I totally agree with you, and listen, I want us to keep chatting away here, I'm right into this, you know. Would you then give her a giant hurdle to overcome about the history of Zionist Jews, referring to them as Pharaoh's fuck toys? You know, mummy's favourites. Sad thing is, they had tormented her, imprisoned her, and she still was maybe worried that I was a plant or something like that. She'd have to be mad to think that. Anyway, so she didn't reply to that one. Shame on her. So then another guy who is reasonably well known, not maybe as much as her, or maybe in some cases more than her. Either way, most people would know who he was in America, for example. And I didn't even know who the fuck he was, but he was chatting away to me because he was worried that I genuinely am a living Christ, and he would then stop making money. So Cheryl contacted him a while ago and said, remember you were talking to Erol? Erol didn't have a fucking clue who you were. You know, basically, you know, because you're predominantly famous in America. And he didn't reply to her, because now he's gone special. And I noticed they go special after they go on a certain show, right? A show that I call, well, the host of the show I call Sparrow. Yeah, Sparrow, right? And I call him Sparrow because Sparrow watches what I do, right? And then copies what I'm saying and doesn't ever credit me with it. Yeah? Not very moral, is it, Sparrow? Yeah? Quite megalomaniacal, Sparrow. I'm the eagle, you're the fucking sparrow. Yeah? I'm the courageous living Christ whose countless bodies of evidence to substantiate all the things I've done, yeah, to expose rings of beasts murdering our species, all focused imbecilically in on each other until they're snout to snout, and then and only then will they look to the hill and the Zionist Jew just goes, hee. They're that evil, they're that titillating and disgusting, immoral, morally insane sex offender, lunatic, monkeys. So monkeys want to kill humans, and they're so stupid, obviously, they're genociding themselves. I'm going to provide the solutions in this video. So, in a nutcake, so if this male had contacted you, right, and, you know, would you not tell people at least, oh, here, this guy who, to give you the fame of the female, for example, I'm trying to think, like, once again, she's probably as well known as, like, Sally Fields, the female actress, and he was the male equivalent, you know, that, like Burt Reynolds, you know, and so, yeah, I never tell anybody, I never reveal their names, nor should I, you know, and several people of that calibre, should you say, have contacted me, and I always do the exact same thing, and nobody's overcome the second hurdle, man. And once they go and meet the sparrow, it's incommunicado after that, yeah? Because the sparrow is a plant. I'm going to expose Sparrow again. So, there's another thing for your list. Are you being plagiarised by the organised resistance? Yeah, run by Zionist Jews, unsurprisingly. Otherwise they've been shot in the head. Yeah, look at how courageous I am. Yeah, I'm out telling the truth, and I'm not funded by Jews, and that's another one for your list, and it's probably quite an important one. I was contacted when I started putting my videos out on YouTube. Basically, once again, if you're Jewish, consider yourself to be in the same demographic I mentioned earlier. Yeah, the at this moment in time, although, you know, yeah, like the difference between a Jew and a Muslim is quite limited. It's just like 50% difference, really. You know, Zionist Jews want everybody dead who's not them. Muslims want you dead if you don't convert. That's the difference, really. And Christians just basically are rotten to the core. They're all bogus. Just look at the brain. The brain's the most important thing. It shows you what stage of evolution you are at and what perception of reality you can have as a result of it. So, this Zionist Jew contacted me, right? And it's when I recognised, you know, like the Star of David. I didn't make the connection until this smear of shite basically went, we can make you a star. Ting! I recognised, I got it, right? A star, right? Star of David. And he only thing he wanted me to do was stop telling the truth, or stop telling specific truths, and by all means be outrageous or whatever, and then I would be made a star, right? And so you can imagine the air turning blue on that one. And since then, all my output has been, you know, like ruthlessly oppressed. And I should have found it, you know, whenever I put my stuff out on a new website, it naturally goes, all these videos out. You know, Cheryl's got this program where I'd be sitting there going, boop, boop, think of starving darkies, boop, starving darkies, boop, Pamela Anderson, boop, boop, starving darkies, boop, boop, you know, and, you know, a year later, boop. Whereas she has a thing which, when the screen changes, it then does the boop for you. So you don't have to keep coming back, and it just automates it. So, which is the right emphasis on the syllable I was looking for there. So, if a Zionist Jew offered to make you a fucking star, and all you had to do was just don't tell those truths, and just be exactly the same with what you've already recorded of your music or whatever it might be, would you take it? I said, get it right up you fucking pharaoh fuck toy, which went down really well. So when like my new videos or whatever go up on any website, they start going, and then, maybe they're shite. And so, you know, they wouldn't climb so quickly if they were shite, you know. And it's just like, truth. And that's in the Zionist Jews' teachings, where they say that basically, no matter how good a person they are, yeah, no matter what, we must murder them, assassinate them. And that's a word I actually got from the female whose name I'll not mention. Because I was talking about, you know, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King to her, and I'd said they'd been murdered, and the kind of autistic thinking that females have can sometimes be useful, because she said assassinate. So it's quite handy having that magnification there. And so it's very, very true, you know. So the more goodly you are, the more intrinsically good you are, the more of an enemy you are to the intrinsically evil, whose ambition for 1300 years is to kill you. Right? 1300 years. Right? They're not going to stop, you know. Great grandpappy wanted me to kill you. So, in a nutshell, so would you knock back what you would class as stardom? Would you not declare your half-sister's Beyonce? Would you not list all these things? If you had all these strings to your bow, if somebody's offering you hundreds of thousands, would you not take these things? These are the temptations of the devil!